Hey guys, this is CK at CK Education. And as promised, I'm making a video on the one person that was so influential in my success as an entrepreneur. When I say success, I'm not saying that because I'm some millionaire or anything like that. To me, success is just I was able to do what I wanted to do and make enough money so that I could do everything I wanted to do. I mean, it's I'm not comparing myself to anybody. I understand there are tons of people who make way more money than I do, much more successful financially than I am. I don't live life like that. I don't care. I have enough money to do all the things I need to do to have paid off all my debts and provide for my family and enjoy all the things and have the freedom that I wanted. And so that's my own success, if you will. And I'm so thankful to God, first of all, and I'm so thankful to this person that I'm about to tell you about. You probably have never heard of this person before. Most people haven't. And I've learned in life that the best advice is sometimes from people who are lesser known. But as I said in my previous video, I want to take advice from people who have done it, from people who have experienced success in that thing that I'm trying to be successful in themselves. They're not just spewing out theories. They're not just writing books about it. They're not just making YouTube videos about it. They've actually done it. They've experienced it. And in every realm of life, in the things that I want to improve in the things that I want to accomplish or achieve or experience, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for people who have actually done it. And when I give advice, it's the same thing. I don't like to give advice on things that I have no experience in. When I was younger, when I was in my 20s, I used to do that because I was full of theory in my head and I thought that I knew some stuff and I would spew out answers. But looking back to my 20-some-year-old self, I thought I was a fool looking back in hindsight because I really didn't know. When I say I didn't know, I knew, but I didn't know. I didn't have the experience. And so, I'm a little bit older now, and I've learned that advice should only be given if you have experience in that thing. A lot of people give advice, a lot of people have experienced it, but when other people try it, it doesn't work, and that's another thing. A lot of people have probably read the same books, but may not experience the same results because they're not implementing in a way that you should. And it's the same thing with this guy. Let's not delay the mystery here. Who is this guy that I'm talking about? This is a dude named Dan Kennedy. Okay, he's an author. I've never met him personally. I met people personally who have met him personally, but I've not met him personally. He's a best-selling author, but he's very lesser known. I think that when someone reads one of his books, they may not get the whole teaching, the entire philosophy, the scope of his philosophy in one book. That's why I think it's difficult to grasp Dan Kennedy's the pillars of what he teaches. There are very fundamental pillars that I think that I've caught onto when I was learning from his material and from people who have studied under him and who have implemented business ideas and entrepreneurs who have succeeded because of his business philosophy. So let me share some of the things that have absolutely worked for the last 13 years. Things that were so different when I heard them that it blew my mind. And here's the typical entrepreneurial success plan, the conventional one, not Dan Kennedy's, the conventional one. And let me just say before I go into this real quick that there's a difference between an entrepreneur and a business owner. I'm talking about entrepreneurs. The difference is an entrepreneur is someone that I define as someone starting from scratch. They're starting from zero. They're starting from their own idea. There's no infrastructure set up. There's no business that you go buy. There's no building that you purchase. There's no program that you inherit. It is from zero, from scratch. A business owner is someone who might go get a business loan and they might go buy a dry cleaner. They might go buy a Dunkin' Donuts. They may go buy a gas station. They may go out and buy a business. That's a business owner. An entrepreneur is someone who started from scratch and they came up with it from zero and built it up themselves. That's what I did, and that's what I want to talk about. First of all, Dan Kennedy, so the conventional way that I've always thought about business is, well, you have to get a loan, right? You have to get a business loan. You go look for a good business like a Dunkin' Donuts or something. I'm just saying Dunkin' Donuts because everybody knows what that is. So you go buy a Dunkin' Donuts. You say, okay, how much is that Dunkin' Donuts franchise? Oh, I don't know. It's $130,000. Okay, so I'm going to put down $50,000. I'm going to go get a loan, and I'm going to go buy that Dunkin' Donuts, and I'm going to hire my workers, and I'm going to make the donuts, and I'm going to sell the whatever. And then I'm going to make the money, and every month there's a royalty fee that I got to pay to Dunkin' Donuts. But the name is known, and so people come and I make money, and I eventually pay off my mortgage, my business loan, and then it becomes mine. But I still pay the royalties every month, and this is sort of how you think of it. And you want to compete with Starbucks and McDonald's and all these other places, so you can't raise your prices too high. You got to keep it right in the middle. You got to offer discounts. You have to offer things that other places don't offer. You got to keep coming up with new products and services, and on and on and on. And there's a whole marketing thing, and and so this is a very traditional business thing. And growing means that you have one Dunkin' Donuts. Well, in a few years, you have 2, you have 3, you have 5, and you have more locations, and you have more branches, and you have more employees. This is probably the way you think of business too. You're like, yeah, I mean, that's how everybody does it, right? Yeah, that's what I thought too. But listen to this. What if somebody said, because this is what Dan Kennedy says, what if somebody said to you, that way of doing business and the way that the corporations, Coca-Cola, Google, all these big guys, Amazon, the way that they do business has nothing to do with you, the individual entrepreneur. Okay, point number 1, what the corporations do have nothing to do with what you need to do. And I thought, nobody ever said that to me before. Nobody ever told me in such clear terms that point about being an entrepreneur. I just thought, well, Coca-Cola's doing it. The big companies are doing it. Costco's doing it like this. They're doing so. I got to learn, and I got to try to, learn from them and do what they do. And Dan Kennedy was like, that has nothing to do with you. The small entrepreneur, you have to operate by completely different rules. And that was light bulb number 1 to me. And I thought, wow. So all the things that you learn in college and graduate school about business, about corporations, what does that have to do with a small individual entrepreneur? Almost nothing. 0. Okay, then what do I need to do? So here are a few of the pillars that I learned. Dan Kennedy says, number 1, if you look in Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich, this is a book that many successful people have read, and it's a very popular book. It was written many decades ago. But Napoleon Hill says in there, and one of the things that he says is that successful people have specialized knowledge. Dan Kennedy says the same thing. You have to have specialized knowledge, not general knowledge. So just as an example, if you're a brain surgeon, you're going to make more money than a primary care physician, right? If you're an orthodontist, you're probably going to make more money than just a general dentist, okay? And how does that relate to me? I thought specialized knowledge. Specialized knowledge is something that is special, something that is more narrow in scope. It's not just, for example, a public school teacher. Okay, public school teacher is general knowledge. SAT specialist, SAT tutor, college prep, consultant, that's a very specialized knowledge. So I went that route. Specialized knowledge. Okay, I got to have specialized knowledge. And so it's one of the motivations why I went from, I just teach essays to I do SAT. And I not only do SAT, but I do college applications, essays and financial aid, and I do the entire college prep, preparation, consulting, advising, whatever you want to call it, counseling. I do the whole thing, and I do it on a very individualized basis. I don't have groups. I never taught groups. For 13 years, I've only taught one-on-one. There are very few people who do that, and so it makes me, quote, special. It gives me specialized knowledge, okay? So I just talked to a parent yesterday. They were talking, yeah, we went to this place and that place, and they teach 3-on-1 or 5-on-1 or 10-on-1. I heard that you only teach 1-on-1. I said, yes, I do. And so we talked for an hour on the phone, and they decided to go with me. It wasn't a sales pitch on my part. They were asking questions, and I answered them honestly. But that's what's been happening for 13 years, and I get this influx of clients. And I'm saying clients here instead of parents. I usually refer to the parents and students, but from a business perspective, for those of you who want to be entrepreneurs, I'm just using business terms, okay? But this is, so specialized knowledge was the thing that he says you need to have. You need to provide something that nobody else provides, whether that's a service or product or experience. You need to offer something that nobody else provides. While everybody else was going, I'm going to have more and more, a bigger and bigger group. I'm going to hire more and more people. I'm going to have more branches. I went the opposite way. I stuck to 1-on-1. And at first, it wasn't making me that much money. I'm like, man, how much money am I going to make doing 1-on-1? Even my relatives, even friends were saying, you still teach 1-on-1? And I had to say, yeah, I do. Why don't you teach 3-on-1 or 5-on-1? Why don't you teach a class? You'll make more money. Why don't you have more branches? Why don't you branch out and hire more tutors? And I just always stuck to what Dan Kennedy said, because after a period of time, it really started to work. All right. I'm going to share some details here that I don't usually share, but this is just to prove the point and to help you understand in more detail. So I stuck to 1-on-1 because it's special, because it's custom, because nobody else really does this. Okay. And so specialized knowledge. And the second pillar is, he says, you have to become the expert in your specialized thing. Okay. You have to become the expert in your field. This is the next pillar. So you got to have specialized knowledge. What's your specialized thing that you're going to do? It's not just enough to be in that field. You got to be the best in that field. You have to be an expert in that field. So I decided, when I started interviewing people, because I thought, okay, I'll do SAT. And this was really because of demand. I didn't set out to do this at all. I never took the SAT before. I never taught it before. I really had no business teaching it. But I started to talk to people who did that and who had lots of experience doing it. I interviewed many people, and I looked into many programs, and I read about it, and I watched it on YouTube, and I really tried to immerse myself in that thing. And I learned that everybody was pretty much doing it the same way. So I thought, if I do it that way, I'm not going to be successful. So I took a different route again, and I did it a completely different way. I approached it like an engineering project, and I approached it as if I knew nothing. Because in reality, I did know nothing. I didn't know anything. I didn't have any experience doing it. So I approached it like zero, just blank. Like, what's SAT? Like that level. And I started researching it. Just like I did in all my engineering projects in my engineering career, I approached it like an engineering project. I observed it, I researched it, I documented it, I measured it, I tested it, I designed it, I refined it, I tested it again, and I kept doing it. And I created a system, and I tested on a few students, and it was wildly successful, even to my surprise. The first year that I did it, my first two students that I used my system on, this is back in the day when SAT was out of 2,400, and both of these students got, I think, like 2,250, and they started out 400 points, or like 300 points lower. So from the starting point, when they took their test, the real test, they got 300-point increases. Both students did that. So that blew me away. And the reason that blew me away was that I was reading books at the time of people who were experts in college prep and college prep consulting, and these people were showing off in their books that they raised their student scores by 200 points. And I thought, man, 200 points. But for the first two students that I had, their scores went up by 300 points. And so I knew I was onto something. So I kept refining that. And even to this day, 13th year doing it, I continue to refine my system. So I became known. I became an expert in my field. I became an expert. I consider myself, I really say this carefully, with all due respect to other teachers and without arrogance. I'm not better than other people, but I feel like I am confident that I am the expert, the best in this thing that I do, because I made sure that I became that, and that's based on results. it's not based on some feeling or some arrogant attitude. Again, I say this very carefully, but I consider myself the expert in this field. But Dan Kennedy went a step further. It's not good enough to be the expert in your field. You can be an expert in your field. You can be the best in your field. Nobody knows about you. You're not going to have any success. So the other thing that he taught me was you have to be known. You have to be the recognized expert in your field. So I thought, well, how do I be recognized? Now, a long time ago when I was learning about this, I went to a seminar, a free seminar, about an hour and a half away from my house. And this was one of Dan Kennedy's students, if you will. And this man knows Dan Kennedy personally, and he's a very successful entrepreneur in his own right. But I went to one of his seminars. It was actually a real estate seminar. That had nothing to do with what I do. But entrepreneurs can always learn something from other entrepreneurs. It doesn't really matter what the field is. And so I went there, and I spent a lot of money actually back then. And actually went to like a 3-day boot camp, a real estate boot camp. And at the time, honestly, I thought, man, I wasted my money because I didn't really learn. I wasn't really able to continue the real estate thing that I thought I was going to be a real estate investor. And I was a real estate investor. I just wanted to do it in a bigger way at the time. And so I did that, and I thought, man, I wasted my money, and because I didn't end up doing that. One of the reasons I ended up not doing that was I saw people who were making a lot of money doing it, and I got to know them personally, and I realized something. These people were working 24/7, 365, literally. In the morning, they get up at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, and they're going until 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night. It's all real estate. It's all day, every breathing moment is real estate. That's not the life I wanted. So I said, well, to do it like that, if I got to do that to get that, then I didn't want to do that. But in hindsight, it wasn't wasting money at all. And this seminar thing, it cost me like $8,000 for a 3-day seminar. Okay. So if you guys all think that, man, I don't want to spend a few hundred here or there, I spent $8,000 for a 3-day workshop. Okay. And looking back, it was worth every single penny, because what I learned over the years and what I learned from that, I didn't know at the time that it was so helpful, was I learned so much of Dan Kennedy's philosophy from that man. And at the time, I didn't know how important that was. But so he taught me you have to be the recognized expert. You got to be known as the expert. Well, how do I get known? And at first I thought, why are these guys doing seminars? It's free seminars. What money do they make doing free seminars? And they got to rent out like the space. And he was writing like blogs and stuff, and he was doing all these things. And I thought, why is he doing all these things? And over time, I learned entrepreneurs do things like that to become recognized, to get their name out there. So I started doing seminars. So I started doing seminars in Maryland and Virginia, and one time in Virginia, I had about 110 people show up, and I did it in Maryland, we had about 60 people show up. And so I started doing that, started to get my name known. I had the opportunity to write an education column in the Korea Times newspaper. And I did that. It was like a bi-weekly, sometimes weekly column. And so every Tuesday, there's an education section in the Korea Times newspaper when they used to have this. And so I used to write a column in there. And so I got known throughout the Maryland, Virginia, even people in North Carolina called me, New York called me. And over the years, I've taught, and I'm teaching students from various states, and I've taught people in over 12 states across the United States. And I've taught kids in India, in South Korea, and like I said, in 12 different states in America. And so it's grown. But back then, I didn't know that, but I started doing seminars. And so a lot of people came, and I gave free information, which I thought was very valuable information. I just gave out all the information that they had questions on. I just gave, good information. I also started writing columns, so I got known for that. I started doing college tours, and I did this 3 times, and we took like a group of 50 students on the first one, about 35 students on the second one. But what happens when you do things like that, you advertise in the newspaper, and we did it with a partnership with the travel agency. So, we got, it's known in the newspapers, and my name's there, my face is on there, and so on and so forth. And so I was in the papers for like 5-6 years straight. And so I got known that way. I also I did free phone consultations. So people would call me and I would give them, answer the questions for like sometimes an hour. Okay. And I gotten very busy. It's hard for me to do that these days too often. But I did all these things. I created a website, I made business cards, and I made flyers. So I did all these things to try to get my name known. And over a few years, my name became known. People recognized, people, knew, oh, for SAT you go this guy, and this is so it began to happen over time. And it got to a point where I didn't have to advertise anymore. It was 100% referral. And to this day, right now, I don't advertise. It's all referral. It's 100% referral. And so it's gotten to that point. But Dan Kennedy was exactly right. Dan Kennedy said, go into specialized, you need specialized knowledge. And then he said, you have to become an expert in that thing. And then he said, you have to be known as an expert. You can't just be the expert, you got to be known as an expert. Another thing that he taught me was your fees. How do you set your fees? Okay, so what everybody else does is they look at what everyone else does. So in my case, they look at all the other SAT prep places and teachers out there and tutors out there. So like, what do they charge? And then you charge about what they charge. If you want more customers, maybe you go a little bit lower so you get more customers, right? And that's how everybody does it. Dan Kennedy said, no, you charge more than everybody. And when I heard that, I was like, what? I'm gonna lose all my customers if I do that. I'm gonna lose all my students. And so at first, I started very low. And so I started like literally like $20 an hour or something like that. And then I started going up a little bit. I met this guy, he was charging like $50 an hour. And I thought, man, $50 an hour? When am I ever going to make $50 an hour? Because he had 15 years on me. He'd been doing it for 15 years when I had like zero, when I was starting. So I thought, man, I got to work 15 years to get to $50, $50 an hour. And, but Dan Kennedy taught me something different. He said, doesn't matter about that. Doesn't matter about that. Raise your prices, raise your fees. And so, I raised it to like 40. I raised it to 50. By the time I raised it to 50, I had a good number of students, and I had an office actually. And I just thought that I got to raise it again. Think about this for a second. If somebody charging you $50 an hour, and then somebody suddenly says to you, oh, my fee is now $75 an hour. That's almost an unreasonable increase. Okay, if you're charging somebody $50 an hour and then you charge them $75 an hour, it's just like the next day, basically. Okay, but that's what I decided to do, because that's what I learned from Dan Kennedy. If you have demand, if you have a lot of people, if you have a lot of clients and they're lining up, don't just be happy that they're lining up, raise your fee. Now here's what I'm thinking, man, if I raise my fee, I'm gonna lose some people because they're gonna say, oh, you're too expensive now. And Dan Kennedy says, you will lose some people. Assume that you're gonna lose about 20% of your people, okay? But the increase in price will more than make up for that. As a business, you'll still make more money working the same. And so I wanted to get to that point. And so I decided to do it 1 year. I was so scared. I was like, man, everybody's going to leave me. I don't know. I'm scared. But I don't know why. I felt just inside that I had to do it. So I did it. And I called all of my parents, all of the parents, all the clients, one by one. I called them on the phone personally. I said, I'm going to increase my fees. And starting next month, it's going to go up to $75 an hour. And I understand that it's a big increase. And I understand if you think it's too big of an increase and if you leave. I understand that, and I'm taking that into account, but I'm just letting you know, and the choice is up to you. You can continue or you don't have to. Now, the way that I do it in my business, I just charge once every month. So it's month to month. People can quit anytime. They can leave anytime. There's no binding contract. There's no contract that they sign. They have to be with me for a certain length of time. I've never done that. Still don't do it to this day. I feel like if you're doing a great job, you don't have to worry about that. I never had to worry about it, okay? So I told parents, look, you're not under any contract with me. You're not bound, so you can leave at any time, as you know. But I'm raising my fees. I just want to let you know. And do you know what happened? What do you think happened? None of the parents left. None. Zero. Not even one. And I was so completely flattered and humbled by that. Um, at the time, I just thought, well, at least 20% are going to leave. They're going to say, what are you, ridiculous or something? You raising your price that much? Not one parent left. And I thought to myself, well, I got to be doing something right. Because if I raise my rate suddenly that high, that much higher, and nobody leaves, man, that's some loyalty, right? That's loyalty. And I just learned from that experience that one of the most important things in entrepreneurship, in business, is building loyalty. But you know how you build loyalty? Yes, you got to do a great job. Yeah, you got to be good at what you do. Of course, that goes without saying. But there's an X factor there. And that X factor is you got to love what you do. You got to love the people who are your clients. You got to love them. People think I'm joking when I say I learned that the number one most important thing about sales and about business is loving people. And people say, what are you talking all mushy and stuff? Like, what do you mean loving people? No, I literally mean that. The number one most important thing about sales, and I'll make a video about sales at some point, I think, and I want to do that. But you got to love your people. You got to love your students. You got to love your clients. You got to love the parents you got to love them. And if you don't, it's just a people thing, And if you love what you do and you love the people whom you are serving, there's a loyalty there. They won't leave you. That's what I experienced. And I was so thankful to all of the parents at that time. This was many years ago, who didn't leave me even when I raised my fees that much higher. And to this day, I'm still so thankful, to those people. So the loyalty thing is so important, but that comes with a good name. I'm going to mention this because I feel so strongly about it, but Dan Kennedy is the guy who's instrumental in my entrepreneurial success. But as I said in my last video, all credit ultimately goes to God. In the scriptures, it says in Proverbs that a good name is to be desired above riches. If I were to tell you a real secret, before Dan Kennedy, before all of this, when I was thinking, what kind of business do I want to run? When I read that, a good name is to be desired above riches. I don't know why, that just came out at me like it was talking to me. It's almost like my name was on there. And I read that, and I just thought, there it is. That's the answer. That's how I'm going to do my business. I'm going to focus on my name and my reputation. Name means reputation. And I'm going to focus on creating a reputable, trustworthy name so that when people hear about me, they think, yeah, you can trust that guy. You can trust that guy. He works hard. He's honest. You can trust that guy. That's the kind of person I want to be. That's the kind of business that I want to be known for. And what I read was a good name is to be desired above riches. It's more important than profit. A good name will bring profit, but profit doesn't necessarily mean you have a good name. Profit, if you're focused on profit, that's very short-term thinking. If you focus on your reputation, your name, what kind of business you want to become, that's forever business. And so I learned way before I met Dan Kennedy and way before that, that was my core sort of business philosophy, a good name. And that all came together in experiences like this, where, oh man, how come nobody left? Not one person left, not one. And so that was incredible to me. And this is kind of funny, but I raised my fees again later, years later. So now I'm at, over $100 an hour. And I still have a waiting list all year long. Remember, I'm just telling you this to share my story of how I learned about successful entrepreneurship. This is not promoting, I'm not trying to show off or anything like that. It's just really trying to show the business side of it. And I think it doesn't work if you don't share numbers, right? But so anyway, that was another pillar. Keep raising your fees. Now people ask me, are you going to raise your fees again? Yeah, I plan to. And what happens is this. It's not the people who come to you, in my experience, it's not the clients you have that will leave you, who will leave you. It's just that some people just won't come to you in the first place because you're too expensive now. Okay. And I've experienced that. And that is something that Dan Kennedy says. He teaches, he says, you just have to, that's a reality, right? As you keep raising your fees, there's going to be a certain percentage of the population that will never come to you because you're too expensive, but that's okay. Your clientele should be people who can afford you. So when people come to me and say, well, you're too expensive, I kindly say, I understand it's not for everybody. And there are other places you can go, other people who do what I do, and you can go to them, and they're more, they have lower fees, and you can go to them. But I understand so when people ask for discounts, can you give me a discount or something like that? I never give discounts. Because another thing that I learned from Dan Kennedy is if you go to a Bentley dealer or Lamborghini dealer, do you get a discount? Do people go there and say, hey, you think I can get $10,000 off that Lamborghini? $50,000? Can you give me a $50,000 discount on that Lamborghini? It doesn't happen. When people go buy a Lamborghini, they're, I want that one. And they add things. I want that, and I want that, and that. They add things. They don't ask for discounts. But when you go to a Kia dealer, when you go to a Toyota dealer, yeah, you ask for discounts. You wheel and deal with the dealers. That's how it works. So same thing. And do you want to be a Lamborghini kind of business, or do you want to be like just a normal Toyota, Honda, Kia kind of business? And I decided a long time ago I want to be like the Lamborghini kind. Okay, that's just my business philosophy. And so that's another thing I learned from Dan Kennedy. And in all of these things that I learned and I implemented and I tried and I've been doing it for 13 years, I can tell you, in hindsight, Dan Kennedy is the man, okay? Dan Kennedy knows exactly what he's talking about because he has done it himself, and following his philosophy, I've also found success. One last thing that I'll share with you about what I learned from Dan Kennedy. He says, everybody, all these entrepreneurs, they show off about, I have more employees now, I have more locations now, I have more branches now, I have more offices now, and they grow and grow. They focus on growth. And they focus on growth by the number of employees they have, the number of offices that they expanded to, and on and on. You know what Dan Kennedy says? He says, I hate employees. I hate having employees. He says, I have one employee, and I've had one employee for many, many, many decades, and that's my personal assistant. He says, it's me and my personal assistant whom I've had for many decades. He says, that's it. I don't want employees. I don't want employees. I want freedom in my business. And for me to be free, I can't have a lot of employees because that means I can't have a lot of offices because that's a bunch of babysitting. Man, how true that was, because in my business too, it's just me. I got one employee, she's my wife, and I got me. I have two people in my business, just like Dan Kennedy, and I have no overhead really. I have no rent. I have no offices. I have no employees. I used to a little bit, but I took Dan Kennedy's advice. And following his advice, it has made me free. And I have my business 100% online from home. So I could really be anywhere, couldn't I? I could be anywhere doing my business. And so I freed myself from those things. And again, it's not just random. It's based on what I learned from Dan Kennedy. So if you also are an entrepreneur, or you're thinking about being an entrepreneur, let me just tell you, it's a lot deeper than you think. There's a lot more involved in entrepreneurial success than people think. And I think that it's absolutely critical that you learn a certain philosophy about doing things. You need a philosophical structure to base your business on. And for me, that was Dan Kennedy. And Dan Kennedy is I never met the man, but his influence on me is deep and great. And I owe my business success, ultimately, always, like I said, anything, all the blessings flow from God above. But if I had to choose a person who taught me and who influenced me to help me become successful in this thing, that's Dan Kennedy. And so I just wanted to share that with you today. And thanks for watching. I'll see you in my next video.